obviously F1's it's the biggest motorsport in the world, and while our other project F1 does a really good job of bringing that to a larger audience than perhaps previous F1 games have done, there's still millions of people out there who just find that a little bit too intimidating. We wanted to create something that was more accessible, more fun, something that would really bring everybody together, and something that was more of a social experience. So what we did was we looked at F1 very much from a layman's perspective. What does people who are not necessarily hardcore F1 fans understand about F1? It's things like wet weather, like pit lanes, like the famous drivers and the famous cars, the fast straights, the braking into the corners. And then for karting games, what people associate with those, which is very much four-way, split screen, power-ups on the track, far more casual racing experience, for having fun with your friends and all of the smack talk that goes with that. So we kind of took those two things together, smashed them into one pile, and then pulled the design together from there. Most karting games rely on a power sliding mechanic. I don't think there are any that don't go down that route. They all play quite similar. But for us, F1 cars don't tend to power slide unless something's gone horribly wrong. So we had to come up with a new handling model that worked in the karting genre, that was fun, easy to pick up and play, but didn't rely on just sliding around corners. So what we've done is, with our track design, the corners are marked out with blue pads. And as you go around them, we've got something that's called our KERS boost system. And people who are familiar with F1 will know what KERS boost is, but ours is very much a gamified version of that. So as you go around these corners, a boost will build up in the back of the car, and then you can release and then hold the accelerator to build up second, third stages of boost. And the more you can do that before you exit the corner, the bigger the boost you get into the straights. And we blend that with our slipstreaming in the straight. So similar to other racing games, if you're behind another car, you get an increased acceleration, a higher top speed. With our power-ups, if you get hit with power-ups, you take damage. And we have various damage states which incur a small speed penalty. I mean, it's a party game, the races aren't long, so they can't afford to be too much of a penalty in terms of your top speed. So they bring it down slightly, but it's kind of, you've got sparks out the back of your car, smoke billowing out the back, so psychologically it feels like it's having more effect than it probably is, so you're kind of encouraged to go into the pits. And then you go into the pit lanes, it will repair the parts back onto your car, and then you'll get back up to top speed again. And what we've done is taken slightly creative license with the tracks. I mean, most people with F1 will know there's one pit lane, but with our tracks there's 3 pit lanes, mainly because the races are quite short and we have to give people the opportunity to pit whenever they get damaged, otherwise you have to go around an entire track without being able to repair. Essentially we have to take these iconic tracks, that some of them have a very rich history, and then turn those into a karting experience. So we drew on a lot of different things. So for example, some tracks are famous for having long sweeping bends, other ones for fast straights and then tight hairpins. Then there's sort of the famous landmarks and the famous corners that are associated with some of these tracks. And then on top of that, F1 is very much a globe-trotting sport. It goes around the world. So there's the identity of all of the countries that we can feed into that. So we took all of those elements, put it into a melting pot, and then used that to inform our design process. So our tracks are very much built bespoke from the bottom up, rather than just trying to crowbar the existing F1 circuits into something that makes sense for our game mechanics. So if you drive around some of our tracks, people will spot the F1 sections, usually around the start straights, but then occasionally we just go off into Crazyville, which is our own inspired sort of karting sections of the tracks, where we have loop-the-loops, corkscrews, big jumps, and other kind of fantastical features. So in terms of our roster of power-ups, we've got around 15 different ones. We've also used the power-up system to give more nods to F1. So there's a wet weather power-up which you can fire, which will bring down the clouds, make it rain on the track, and the person who fired that gets wet weather tyres, so they go a bit faster and the rest of the field is slowed down. We've also got a safety car power-up, so if you fire that, a safety car appears out in front of the rest of the field and concertinas the pack back together, which keeps everybody close for sort of the chaos and frequent overtaking that you want from a karting game. And then we've got things which you'd kind of normally expect in terms of the projectiles in the mines. So you can fire homing projectiles, ricochet projectiles, you can drop mines behind you to defend yourself, as well as some more crazy other ones. One thing we wanted to do was make the choice between the different drivers a meaningful gameplay choice. We didn't really want to give them all their own special power-up. What we've done instead is give them a modified to the game experience. So for example, the Ferrari team, they can fire projectiles, homing projectiles backwards. They're the only team that can do that. One of the other teams, they fire 3 traps behind them rather than just one. Another team has got the ability to re-rule their power-ups. So if they get a power-up, they're not very happy with it, they can hold the button down, it'll give them another one. So each of the teams kind of changes the way that the game experience plays, so therefore the players have got a genuine gameplay choice rather than just necessarily picking their favourite constructor or their favourite driver. In addition to the race mode, we've got 6 other race modes, as well as a bunch of what we call configuration options. So some of the configuration options are things like you can choose to have a subset of the power-ups active. At the moment, by default, only power-ups do damage. You can make it that collisions and the world does damage. The race modes themselves, we've got a slalom mode, which essentially has got gates around the track with different colours, and as you sequence different colours together, you get higher scores. We've got a mode called Total Racing, where you get points for doing different things on the tracks, overtaking other drivers, firing power-ups, setting the fastest lap, taking shortcuts. So it's more of a points-based system. And then we've got ones that people will be more familiar with, sort of an elimination game mode, where whoever's at the back of the pack gets eliminated, and then every few seconds the next driver gets eliminated. Yeah, you can play it single player, but very much it's about sofa play, playing with your friends. But what was really important to us was, because it was a multiplayer game, giving people all the configurations they could possibly want. So we don't have split screen or online, it's split screen and online. So if you want to play a 4-way split screen against another 4-way split screen online, then you can do that. So F1 Race Stars will be coming out this November, this holiday season, and it'll be on 360, PS3 and PC, and it'll be F1 like you've never seen it before.